This is where the fun begins.
Are you sure? So be it. Did you miss me?
Yeah, no, the reason I went after Star Wars, Marvel actually had the license, and we went after it because I was such a Star Wars geek. I saw Star Wars 19 times in the theater. So,
CAF. Lots of it. For me and for the Ready Room. I have a feeling this mission is not one we can fly in our sleep.
Good morning, everyone. This is our exclusive Rumble CAF chat. So I know that we will have less of a crowd, and that is perfectly fine. I do plan on sending this live as a premiere over to YouTube later. However, here we are. So today, welcome to CAF chat on Rumble. And I see people are slowly dropping in, and I do have Soul Assassin, what's up, the mod in here, and got everything ready. Smash the like button and share the stream out. And then also my YouTube, thank you for sharing that out as well. And then on my Twitter. Yeah, so hello everyone. And today is going to be a fun one. I might have to go close this window. If you hear the wind or little rustling sound, I do have the window straight across from me open. It is kind of cool outside. I'm giving you the weather report right now. Welcome to CAF Chat's weather report. And it's cool now. It cooled down. It was pretty warm, and now it cooled down, and we have a nice breeze going on, and it's nice and cool, and it feels good. It feels great. So, but despite that, other than that, what is in your mug? What are you enjoying? And yes, on Rumble, exciting news. I am a part of the creator program now, which means, yeah, I'm going to put some more work on this side here to keep up with the stats. And so I'm the 5th day in on being accepted in. I do plan on premiering and bringing some videos from YouTube, like, what do you call it? Talking to you that have not been on Rumble when I had it connected at the one point when there was that cross connection, I guess you could say. So I'm bringing some of YouTube over here to premiere and to keep the channel up and going, the creator program. So I'm super excited about this as well. And I'm going to create a second channel for here, our studio, our channel, whatever. And it's going to be more into art. So on YouTube, it's going to be its separate little thing, but then over here, it's still going to be linked under my profile as another channel. And so I'm super excited about that. So as you come in, smash that like button, of course, and follow or become a subscriber. That is a member. I think I'm getting the lingo right. So I'm going to play this, and then I'm going to go close the window because I am getting a little chilly. It feels good, but I am getting a little chilly sitting here and stuff. So I'm going to go close my window. So here we go.
And I've always leaned towards if we're going to create something, we should check and see if it existed already to the fans, because it has way more value if we bring that in. And It's like, why would I just replace it with something new? So if we're going to do an admiral, if we're going to do a big military leader, yeah, I could create a new guy, sure. But what about Thrawn? Thrawn is great. Thrawn is a character we all know. Thrawn has a lot of credibility. So then you ask yourself, is it right to use him? And can we use him in a way that's similar to the books? Or are we using him and it's going to go completely into left field? And there have been times when we wanted to use things from the EU, and I was like, yeah, but we can't use it that way, so why? I don't want to use it and change it. You know, I don't want to use it and make it something completely different. That's rude.
That's rude. Yeah. So there you go. A nice little clip of Filoni. How are you guys doing? Nice way to start that off, right? All right. So little updates regarding my personal schedule versus streaming and creating content and stuff like that. My schedule has changed up a little tiny bit. It's more or less for the good. So I used to work Wednesday nights. I had the evening shift at the studio where I work at, and we had someone leave, so my schedule got shifted. Of course, it was my choice. So I now work Wednesday mornings in the studio instead, and then Thursday night. So basically, it gives me a little bit more time to sit and teach, come home, and prep for CAF chat, which on the other hand, it was a little bit more difficult because I was for Wednesday nights, there was a little bit more stuff going on for that I needed to take care of, which kind of neglected CAF chat a little tiny bit. I don't know. But anyway, it feels more streamlined to me. However, those of you guys who support the space scene, I may not be able to listen or sit in on the chat as much as I want to Thursday nights for the spacing because I work Thursday nights. It starts at 8:05-ish, or sometimes it gets pushed back, and I'm off around that time, so I could listen to on the way home, drive home, or what have you. But yeah, so that you may not see me much in the chat there. However, I can now listen more and support Casual Rage. So there we go. There's that ebb and flow with everything. I support those two no matter what. It's just how the schedule happens and what goes on. But despite that, today we are going to get into talking about Dark Horse's announcement. Maybe what that means for Dark Horse going forward. Is it a wise choice? We don't know. I don't know. We can only speculate. With that, we're going to go ahead and talk about maybe lore regarding to what Dark Horse contributed through Lucasfilm. And then Cringe Factor. There's a lot of stuff going on for Cringe Factor. Holy heck. So we'll get into that. And yeah, so we still got the same schedule here, just on Rumble. And thank you guys for hopping in and watching. Those who are watching, say hello in the chat. Let me know you're here. And yeah, so let's see here. So with that being said, I only have like me and Soul in the chat right now. So, all right. So not a long introduction. And I encourage those who are on YouTube to come on over and support Rumble as well. And follow, subscribe, get over there, because it's just as easy to come in and support on YouTube as in the chat as it is in Rumble. So don't be a Rumbleist. Get over here and hang out. Yeah. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into LucasFacts. Now, what's so crazy is I did not make a book of the week again. Holy heck. Now, I don't want this to become a habit of mine because I love sharing book of the week. I just have been getting all kinds of news that I was preparing for CAF chat and stuff like that, and a clip that I wanted to share with you guys. And I just totally just blew that one off. Holy heck. I just totally just spaced it. I totally just spaced it, but I did get my LucasFacts done. Usually I get them done together, but I was multitasking as well. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That's my story. Yeah. All right. So with that being said, let's get into LucasFacts right now.
That's great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
All right. So here we go. LucasFacts. Okay. So rather than forbid each of us to get into those mysterious areas, it was decided that we should submit questionnaires to George Lucas. Basically, we would make a long list of ideas we wanted to use, and he would check okay, not okay next to each idea. For example, I made a long list of possible powers that the ancient Jedi possessed. He voted most of them, but okayed some. He vetoed, excuse me. He vetoed most of them, but okayed some rather interesting ones, such as the ability to study the qualities of animals and acquire those qualities. He also okayed the use of Jedi battle meditation, the ability to influence events by interior visualization. And this is Tom Veitch telling tales interview with Dan Wallace. And this source here is Galaxy Magazine, issue 13, November 1997. So there you go, LucasFacts. And we all know that because that has been something that has been reiterated through all the authors, sending basically a outline of the story with plots and stuff, or questions about stuff, to even meeting with him, reading the story summaries, what have you. So there's that synergy here of what was going on with the novels past 1990, I guess you could say. And it's interesting to get into the development of what is now called the EU, because before then it was never called the Expanded Universe. It was just called Star Wars, right? And then the Expanded Universe happened after the fact, but it all remained one continuity in the canon. And all books were still labeled Star Wars. They weren't labeled a separate brand like Expanded Universe per se, for it to be a multi-universe. Or multiverse. So that's a very interesting thing here. And I really think that people misunderstand this, or the anti-EU people misunderstand what exactly this entails. And it entails that George was and has always been in control. I see you, Batsy. How are you doing? How are you doing? So with that, I thought I'd share this. Now, let's see here. Now, let's go back to that video I shared with you, because I did plan on playing it after the fact, but I just not trying to torture you guys or anything like that. But yeah, now listen to what he says about like honoring EU stuff, but then think about what he did. So actions speak louder than words.
And I've always leaned towards if we're going to create something, we should check and see if it existed already to the fans, because it has way more value if we bring that in. And It's like, why would I just replace it with something new? So if we're going to do an admiral, if we're going to do a big military leader, yeah, I could create a new guy, sure. But what about Thrawn? Thrawn is great. Thrawn is a character we all know. Thrawn has a lot of credibility. So then you ask yourself, is it right to use him? And can we use him in a way that's similar to the books? Or are we using him and it's going to go completely into left field? And there have been times when we wanted to use things from the EU, and I was like, yeah, but we can't use it that way, so why? I don't want to use it and change it. Mm-hmm. I don't want to use it and make it something completely different. That's rude.
That's rude. How rude. Oh, my goodness. And let's see here. I'm going to play this here. All right, let's see here.
Jedi is something that came a little later. When we started building Jedis, we had a lot of Jedis, and we needed more and more Jedis. As we were doing them toward the end, we ended up with a lot of Jedis that looked like people that worked at ILM, with these short little haircuts and looked like they stepped out from behind a computer. And so I was saying we have to get more exotic Jedis, and so we only have so much resources to do these things with, but I do have Twi'leks because we use them quite a bit in other areas in the Senate and as background action. So I have a sort of a wardrobe and a setup of certain kinds of characters. So it was a way of reinventing some of those characters. And I had realized that we had a comic book that has a Twi'lek in it that is a Jedi. There's a whole series actually of her. And I said, well, why don't we put her in this? I mean, she's a comic character, but we'll just fit her in and have her be a background character because that's exotic. That's how the Twi'lek Jedi ended up in the backgrounds of these shots, was to try to use some of the work and effort that the guys in the comic book world had put into things and characters they had created.
So there you go. So the synergy that happens with George Lucas, right? Using the EU or using the established lore for the movies, honoring, like he said, and creating, like interlacing basically the multi media franchise, because we know Star Wars under George Lucas is a multimedia franchise. So it's the story just did not exist in the film on film. It existed also in the games, in the novels, in the comics, and and sometimes even in the newspaper strips and stuff like that. So depending on so do we need to regulate this to a non-canon status, because what we're building here is one seamless timeline of history of Star Wars, and this does not fit no more. So this can go into a what ifs infinities type situation. So there's that whole history there. And again, I'm always talking about this or reiterating this or talking about just how Star Wars under George Lucas was something that was a big deal to fans, and they recognized that, and they played off of that from the beginning in a sense, because we had Super Stoney taking care of and keeping track keeping track of the establishing of characters, worlds, all of that, the galaxy that George created. And without her efforts, I believe that we wouldn't be talking about this in general. And then when the work started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, they hired Leland Shee to come in, and he created the online database, basically, which is called the Holocron. So he took a lot of what Super Stoney did in the past, and with her and her team, the team then, and Super Stoney worked alongside him then too, up when he was hired, and he recorded everything. And they also have what is called the Bible, which George Lucas had his own copy of, quote unquote, the Bible that he can look into and research and see existing characters and stuff within the lore. And so that has been very interesting as well. Seeing the creation of the creation of the historical timeline of Star Wars. So there you go. So this is Tom Veitch, the interview with Dan Wallace, telling tales right there. So this is your LucasFacts. Here you go. Enjoy. All right. So with that being said, talking about Lucas Books is a, I guess you could say, a subsidiary or subdivision of Lucasfilm. Then you have LucasArts. So in Lucasfilm. So you have these three entities that created the continuity. And what that was about is they housed where those media projects happened. So the film portion, of course, was in charge of film. And then the Lucas Books, of course, the books, the comics, and then games, of course, LucasArts, the games. And Lucas used to call him, when he would describe these divisions and where the lore came from or whatever, he would call them worlds. He would call them worlds. And so he was like, my world, the film, right? Or their world, the book, basically. And so on. So he would just, and he even said comic world, which basically is the Lucas Books. So we're talking now, we're getting into another segue here of what I wanted to talk about in the beginning. And I was like, damn, I want to make this the main topic for today. And it's Dark Horse. Now, we know that Marvel from the beginning was licensed or was brought in by George to create some of the first comics that, for Star Wars. And those Marvel comics are spectacular. I don't know if you guys in the chat have any, or if you try to find them, they're probably cost a lot right now. Collector's value and stuff like that. So Marvel began, and then they dropped the license. They dropped the privilege, I guess you could say, of creating for Lucasfilm, and we had Dark Horse step in. So let me go ahead and play this clip again. So if you weren't here from the beginning, I played this clip, but here is the founder creator of Dark Horses.
Yeah, no, the reason I went after Star Wars, Marvel actually had the license, and we went after it because I was such a Star Wars geek. I saw Star Wars 19 times in the theater. So
19 times in the theater. He saw it 19 times. He was a huge fan. He's seen that Marvel dropped their deal with Lucasfilm, with George, and he's like, I am a big fan. I want to head up this, their comic, I guess you could say, division of Lucas Books or whatever. And so he stepped in. And I wish I could click on that. So Soul Assassin says, newspapers, anyone but me feeling old yet? Yes, millennial, it's just you. I own an omnibus of the Bantam newspaper strips from the 40s. Nice. And Batsy says, I would love to have read Star Wars strips in my newspapers during the heyday of Lucasfilm. Yeah, those were very cool. I believe, like, my collection I have of Luke Skywalker, it's a Luke Skywalker collection, and it's in a leather hardcover binding type thing. I think there might be a couple paper strips newspaper strips in there too. I have to take a look again. But those are pretty cool too. Those were pretty cool. I used to love getting the newspaper and opening up and reading about Garfield and stuff like that too. He was my favorite character, Garfield, when I was little. So I love opening them up and finding those Garfield comic strips and reading, and there was a whole page I remember of like different comic strips, like all down the line of the page of the newspaper. Pretty cool. And now you don't really have that. There's not really, there's newspapers are rare. They're still there. They're still out there. But everything is online, digital. And that takes the fun out of that, because just imagine waking up or having in my instance, my Unchi, my grandma, getting the newspaper from the store. And there used to be like little newspaper kiosks where you paid a quarter or something like that, and you open it up and you grabbed your newspaper and you took off. Pretty interesting with that. And sitting down and just opening up. I used to cut them out. I used to cut out the comic strips as well too. And read. Sit down and read. Have a good time. So back in the days, now everything's electronic, everything's online, digital, what have you. And there's no fun in that anymore. And and I was going over like the stats of these generations today, like throughout the world too, because the world is digital now, right? Throughout the world. And few people read books anymore, and that's not only in the United States. It's like there's more or less instant gratification because of TikTok and shorts and stuff, where you have the attention span only being within like a minute or so, which is kind of alarming. And so there's all these stats and stuff like that, and how there's a decline in literature and comprehension of that, per like, and the grade level of reading attention has lowered throughout the world, not just here in the United States. And so kind of crazy, right? Because my channel is about well, not just particularly about the EU. It's a George Lucas era Star Wars, but the EU makes up about 85-90% of the franchise, right? And I'd say 85 because you have games, right? Then you have the films, then you have the cartoon shows and stuff like that. And then you have the source books where you can grab a source book, you can find one if you can find it cheap. Again, collectors prices these days and age are freaking crazy. And go from there and study the history of Star Wars, whether it's species, whether it's vehicles, whether it's planets, or what have you. So there's so much to do. But it's not favored anymore. Really. It's not. I'm like over here, Gen Xer. Yes. Telling on myself, my age. And I just cannot comprehend. But what I am happy about is my kids love to read. And they're young adults now, so they love to read. My oldest daughter, she does a little personal book club reading thing with some friends, and that's pretty cool. And she's always excited because she's always getting some new books and stuff like that. Yeah. So anyways, not trying to go on this tangent of like what's going on these days and age when it comes to books and holding something in your hand to read versus the digital stuff, digital age, I guess you could say. And Soul Assassin says, lowered on purpose, methinks. Probably, maybe. Nerds. Yes, we are. We are friggin' nerds. We don't care, you know. And, you know, and then there's still some that love the comics. And that visual reading is amazing too. It's amazing because especially when you get art in comics that are friggin' badass, right? You're like, it's on point with what's going on and you just can't put your comic book down. With that being said, let me go ahead and pull up what we're going to talk about now. Let's segue into that and then we'll get into lore talk, okay? Let me see here. I should have had it up already, but I was doing other tasks, but I do all have it in one area. And where did it go? Here we go. Here we go. All right. So Dark Horse Comics, what do you know about them? And do you have a favorite comic from Dark Horse Comics? Now, we're talking about Star Wars, but however, if you know because Dark Horse was not just specifically for Star Wars. So if you have something outside of Star Wars, feel free to share that too. Feel free to share. Let's see here, share screen. And let's pull this up. Mike Richardson. Does that name sound familiar to you? If you know history of Dark Horses, maybe. And I wish I would have got this interview, but like, was it over a year ago now already? Last summer. Yeah. Almost a year ago. Was it that? Anyways, I got to visit Dark Horse comic store down in LA area. And I had an interesting talk with the manager there at the comic store, Dark Horse there, and tell me about like when Disney purchased Lucasfilm and how everything was handled with the Star Wars comics that was created under George versus what was coming out for what do you call it? Let me close that. Why aren't you closing? Damn it. Oh, it's still spinning. Still spinning. All right. So that's stuck there on the screen. There we go. It's cleared off. All right. But anyways, going back to that, just hearing how like when Dark Horse basically lost the contract under Lucasfilm when after the acquisition by Disney, and how they were shredding comics. They were ordered before they lost their contract or whatever. They were ordered to shred all the comics that were made under George Lucas. Isn't that fucking crazy? And all in preparation for what's to come. And that's crazy. That to me, that's a waste. I'm like, damn, that is crazy. I would love to have the whole collection. If like you're shredding them, just hand them over to me. I wish I would have known that. Like I said, I wish I would have got the full interview from him and got him, at least, on recorded voice recorded. Soul Assassin says Disney took over Star Wars, then returned to Dark Horse because the shit didn't sell off. Yeah, and when they went back to Marvel, what they did is because they do those stories that were created through Dark Horse, those are legally Lucasfilm stories. So even though they were licensed under or licensed still, like this is a dual license, they were licensed under Dark Horses as their comic provider, I guess you could say. There's a better word for that. I just don't have it. Lucas still had the rights. Lucasfilm still had the rights. And so when they republished them, they did them in the Legends banner collector books, right? So I do have some of those because I want all the comics. But if I can find them under the original cover under Dark Horse, then I'd rather have it that way, right? So they did that. So under Marvel, they reprinted them. And then later on, Dark Horse came back and now they have the license again to work under Disney Lucasfilm to continue telling now their stories, which good for them. I mean, that's awesome. But looking back at the heyday of the comics under Star Wars, George Lucas era, amazing. That's envy mixed with ego. Disney knew Lucas era was superior and wanted to erase them. And that's the thing. That's all I know is he said that the higher ups, it was an order from the higher ups. So higher ups could have been Mike from Dark Horse, or it could have been. Let's see here. All right. So with this right here, I wanted to find one of the original sources. I didn't want to go through Bleeding Fool or anything like that. So I found it under the Hollywood Reporter. And this was yesterday. And this came out about 2 p.m. or 12 noon yesterday. Mike Richardson out as CEO of Dark Horse Entertainment after 40 years. Embracer, the video game holding company that bought Dark Horse in 2022. And that you know what? That slipped me. I didn't know that Embracer purchased the company Dark Horse in 2022. Okay, so that's like, oh shit. I wish I would have known that. We could have talked about earlier when that acquisition happened and, maybe speculated what could come of Dark Horse later on, even though they're under Disney Star Wars, or they're licensing and producing under Disney Star Wars. That'd have been interesting to watch because look what it led to. So it basically says is installing games executive as interim CEO. So they're replacing Mike Richardson for their gaming executive as interim CEO. So here we go. So here is the creator founder Dark Horse here. Let me go ahead and move that. And let's get into this. Now I read through this last night mostly. So we'll get into it now. Some of you guys may know this or may not. So if you guys want to add anything to this or even share your favorite comic as I read this and as we discuss, feel free to do that and feel free to get in the conversation. I do have the chat in front of me. Little different than YouTube when it comes to using StreamYard on how I can reply to you guys. So I have another window up. All right. So publisher and producer Mike Richardson is out as CEO of Dark Horse Comics, the media company that he built from a comic book store business. Now we know that George Lucas too I think he had his own comic book store. And at one point or wanted to and was privy and loved comics, the art of telling and showing a story, and that's through comics as well. That's through comics. I have to grab something, so I'm going to play this clip here, and I'll be right back. So hold that thought and share. Let me see here. What can I play? But I have to go grab something real quick. You know what? I can wait. Never mind. I'll take that back. All right, let's get back to this. It's not that important. In his steed, Embracer, the video game holding company that bought Dark Horse in 2022, is installing gamer executive Jay Comas as interim CEO. So again, I'm not too privy in the gaming industry, not like when I was younger, back in my younger days when Nintendo first came out and stuff like that. So I wouldn't know of or how Jay Comas is about regarding Embracer and that company. So anybody in the chat who wants to share a little bit more, please share with me. All right, let's see here. So this is what he says, or this is what is quoted. As part of our long-term vision to better align Dark Horse within the more connected and forward-looking group structure, we are implementing changes to modernize the business and strengthen collaboration across publishing, games, film, and our merchandise and other key areas, Embracer said in a statement sent to business partners and creators in announcing the 1-2 punch of firing and promotion. Quote unquote, our goal is simple: to ensure Dark Horse is positioned for a sustained success while continuing to serve creators, partners, and fans at the highest level. So what do you guys think about that? At the highest level. So, and all their promises, what they're doing. So they're focusing beyond just the comics. So publishing games, film, merchandise, and other key areas. The collaboration. So their collaboration, for games, film, merchandising, all of that. Let's see here. Hey there, Tim. How are you doing? I see you. We have a gatekeeper in the house. Let me pull this up.
Because there's a fucking gatekeeper. There's a fucking gatekeeper.
We are on Rumble. Yes, we are. The end of the era. This is Soul Assassin. And end of the era, Dark Horse is definitely my favorite out of the comic companies. Star Wars, Alien, Predator, Conan, the Barbarian comics were peak. Yes. And then Batsy says, are there EU tie-ins? The TCW considered canon. I remember a comic where Ahsoka became a pod racer because, of course, she was. I think what they did is kind of weird. Is that the books or whatever that was tie-ins to TCW were quote unquote made legends, put on the legends banner, which they do not fit. They should have went with their perspective TCW onto the Disney side. Yeah, so that's my understanding. That is my understanding. All right, let's see here. Let's get back to this. So just imagine, what's the wrong one? Just imagine being the creator of this well-known comic company with like being really known for not only your Star Wars but other franchises that you licensed out to, and watching it growing and all this and stuff like that, and then the company being, and now I didn't look into this, so maybe this is something for next week. Did Richard himself sell to the game company? Did he sell to Embracer, or was he already in a spot where it wasn't his decision? So that right there, now that I think about that, I need to look further into this, because if he and this sounds so fucking crazy, if he's the one that sold over to Embracer and then just became the CEO during that time, then they went ahead and fired him. They're like, let's just get rid of him and let's move on. So that right there was, you take risks when you do stuff like that. You take a lot of risks, right? Just like with George Lucas, when he sold Lucasfilm to Disney, he thought that he was going to come in as a what do you call it, a contractor, I guess you could say, and help them develop the sequel trilogy and give his advice and stuff, and basically got kicked out. Basically got told by Iger that you can give us ideas, doesn't mean we have to use them. And yeah, that sounds shitty, right? But reality is Disney owns the company, and they make the decisions now. I know, stings, right? It's crazy, right? And it sure did sting George. It's sure. I mean, he has this history of what he has said since then, and so with Richard or Mike Richardson or Richard, yeah. Maybe it's the same case. I don't know. So I got to look further into this. It's very interesting to think about, like, okay, so where did it go wrong? Where was this decision? Where did it happen? Was it through him and then they aced him out? Who knows? Consultant, there you go. Disney can cut throat. They did the same to LucasArts before bringing it back under a new management. Yeah, there was a lot of shit going on. Someone send me that clip. I will. I'll send it over. There we go. Yeah, so I'll look further into that. So it's not Richard Dunn, it's Richardson. So they have a misspell there, but hell, I do that too a lot. Started off as a comics retailer with the Oregon-based store Pegasus Fantasy Books, which was later renamed Things from Another World. In 1986, he began publishing comics with a concerted effort to protect creators' rights. So his history here. Dark Horse became of the home of Frank Miller, putting out Sin City and 300, and Mike Mignola, who has created a whole Hellboy universe since first creating the character in the early 1990s. Licensed comics that were elevated were also a focus, with Dark Horse publishing Alien and Predator comics. The two sci-fi franchises were first combined under his Alien vs. Predator comics, with the title eventually moving to the big screen in the early 2000s. Dark Horse was also a long-time home of Star Wars comics, picking up the license after Marvel Comics gave it up around 1990. And under Richardson, Dark Horse was the first comic company that made a serious and concerted effort to take its comics to Hollywood and to remain involved as producers. The Mask and Time Cop were early hits. Barbed Wire was a notorious failure, and Hellboy built on the strength of the relationship with producer Larry Gordon. Remains a notable Hollywood franchise. He was most recently an executive producer on the Umbrella Academy Netflix adaptation of Dark Horse's comic created by Gunnar Way. So here's some history here. So then it goes back to my thought of, like, okay, so did he bring in the gaming Embracer to extend this vision, and then he got outed? So again, I got to look into this, because it feels like something similar to what George Lucas went through, but that's just what I'm thinking. It could be totally something different. I don't know. Richardson sold the company to Embracers, and Swedish-based Umbrella Corporation that primarily owns several video game companies in the 2022, staying on as CEO. Yeah, so that's what I figured. Staying on, and he sold it. Oh, shit. There we go. There we go. I'll answer my question right here. So he stayed on as CEO. I got my answer right here, you guys. And I was right. He stayed on as CEO after selling to Embracer. And then he got ousted, basically. It's unclear what Embracer has in store with Dark Horse. It is unclear what are its interests in publishing, not a core business, nor is it clear what kind of commitment. That's a lot of, like, you could have like said that all with one, and it's unclear. I'm going back to when I was in my literature class, when I was getting my art degree, and I had this really cool literature teacher, very based guy, and he was talking about how to write with not repeating. Shit, why are you doing that? Repeating so many things. Like, you didn't have to. Oh, okay, you're not gonna let me do that. Okay, you don't have to repeat this over and over again. You can write a better coherent sentence with just one of these. All right. So anyways, just nitpicking here, just noticing something. Although the company statement indicated it wants to remain in the IP management business, however, Comos, whom sources say has been campaigning for the job for a month, does not have direct Hollywood experience. Interesting. It's kind of like the CEO or the president or whatever, CEO of Disney that's being brought in. They said that he doesn't have direct Hollywood experience as well. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? You tell me in the chat. You tell me in the chat. Soul Sansa says Richardson probably went through a Lucas phase when he sold to Embracer. Thought they would continue his company, right? Yeah. Like I said, like before I got there, like I said, I read through this, but not all the way through because I wasn't sure I was going to get this far. But that was my suspicion, and this clarified it. So let's go ahead and read on. Let's get to this paragraph right here. Comments the company stated brings extensive experience with global intellectual properties across games, films, and consumer products. I can't really comment on that because I don't know of him very well. Over the course of his career, he has held senior leadership roles at Electronic Arts, Activision Blizzard, and LucasArts. Yes, I remember seeing his name for LucasArts, where he worked with some of the most recognized entertainment brands in the world. His background in managing and expanding IP across multiple categories will be instrumental as they build Dark Horse legacy and strengthen its position in an increasingly connected entertainment landscape. So connected, so meaning all these properties, all these mediums are connected some way, somehow. Now, I think that George Lucas has some credit to do with his franchise being a multimedia franchise. Yeah, you do have like Star Trek that has the films or the movies and then their novels, right? But George like basically connected a lot to his franchise. He's not the first, but I think he really mastered that pretty well and stuff. So just giving credit to him in a sense, I guess you could say. And with Comas and LucasArts, just like Soul Assassin was saying earlier, how LucasArts started falling apart towards the end in a way. But there were still video games being published, or not published, being made and stuff like that. And it was dismantled during the buyout or shortly after the buyout. And then it stayed gone, I guess you can say, like it was totally gone, LucasArts, that division, to later be brought back in as what they said, I think they said it was the original name that before that was called LucasArts. But anyway, so there's that little history there. So what do you think this is going to be? Like Dark Horses, do any of you guys read anything from Dark Horses now, other than what was produced, brought out, published basically before Disney's buyout of Lucasfilm? Are you purchasing from Dark Horse now? And is it going to affect any planned future purchases from them now? Were they falling to wayside? Because, like I said earlier, not very many people are picking up books, comics, and stuff to read. That's just the history going on right now. Everything's a lot more digital. So them going into other areas may maybe keep the longevity of the company. Who knows? Now, I wish I had a statement from Richardson, Mike Richardson, on, his basically being casted out, fired, or whatever you want to call it. Or maybe contract is up and it didn't specifically say. So I hate to say, oh, he was fired, but yeah, I would love to hear a statement from him. So I'm going to keep an eye out for that. Maybe there will be one, maybe not. Maybe not. All right. So let's see here what you guys are saying in the chat. They start, okay, let's see here. Let's be real. Unless it's licensed, they get Dark Horse is irrelevant. Yeah. They started Star Wars again in what, 2021? Yes, around that. Yes, around that. And I wish, like I said, I wish I would have got that interview recorded for when I was talking to the official at Dark Horse down in LA, but I didn't. So very interesting bit of talk with him. And Soul Assassin says now, no hasn't picked up any in a while. Oh, you haven't picked up any in a while. Digital sucks. Go physical, because nothing beats having a comic in your hands. Yeah. Sitting down, reading it, flipping the pages, just like a regular book, flipping the pages and, and having your favorite drink next to you, whether you're comfortable on the couch or you're sitting at the table or you're relaxing in your hot tub, carefully just kicking back and reading while you relax in, right? There's always that. All right, let's see here. Star Wars. Let's see here. With that, let me go ahead and close this window out. Remove your favorite series from Dark Horse under Lucasfilm Star Wars? And that is George Lucas era. That is George Lucas era. So do you have a favorite comic from them or a series from them? And it's very hard to decide, I think. That's a very tough one. And what are the creative things that you like seeing happen? Because you have the Republic comics, and then you have the comics that are within the PT era. They're not necessarily the Republic comics, but still a part of the greater prequel trilogy timeline. You have Legacy about Cade and them 100 and something odd years from the OT, or at least Star Wars, A New Hope. And there's so many. I mean, they were still publishing, at the buyout. Soul Assassin says, I would say that Couture and Legacy comic series are up there for most. Correct. So you have the Couture, you have all of that. Can you imagine how much those Dark Horse Star Wars collections are gonna go now? For now, gonna be crazy. Correct. And I kind of halted on looking and searching for, more of the original covers of these comics. And I need to get back on that. I just haven't sat down. I usually do at least once or twice a week, looking and seeing, okay, I need this one here. Let me see how much it's going to be. Can I afford to invest into it? Kind of deal. Yeah, but even now, maybe they might go up, or maybe they'll just still stay the same, because nothing for anything that was purchased under Lucasfilm or under George basically has changed. I don't think anything that is done under Disney Star Wars is going to change under this either, but time will only tell. But I don't care about Disney Star Wars with Dark Horse. I don't. To me, that's just a waste of time, a waste of money, and it's not Star Wars. It's not Star Wars. So yeah. All right. Let me go ahead and move this here. Close, stop screen. All right. So there's a lot of shit going on. There's a lot of things going on with like Leslie Headland and her stupid ass remarks in her interviews about like about quote or having Pablo basically say use what's his name? Why am I forgetting his name? Kayandi Mundi. There we go. I'm like, why am I forgetting his name? And the age and whatever. And she's like, and it's not breaking canon kind of deal, to basically saying that Yoda is covering up shit. So like destroying George's characters, basically. And I'm gonna go to we're gonna have just a quick conversation with this. I'm gonna go to Yoda. Because basically he is hiding things for, according to this fake Star Wars under Disney, that he is hiding the fact that there are Sith still in existence. You know, we knew there was because they're hiding, right? Because that's the revenge. That's what comes up to the revenge of the Sith plot. But now he is this liar holding something that, and not talking and not addressing something that can damage, hurt the galaxy. Oh, there's a dark side of Yoda, and he's hiding this top big secret from whoever that character's name is, but she's about the same color green as him. So now, like, this is like the revisionist history that Disney is doing. And Pablo and other officials, like, you can even probably blame Leland Shea, but what is his existence under Lucasfilm now? Right? You hardly hear about him, and you hear more about Pablo. So, with that, the revisionist history of how people are going to look at Yoda now and these future generations, and how and this is all under Disney. And this is why this is so fucking important, you guys, to have channels like this to share the fucking truth. Share the truth of the intentions of what George wanted for these characters, for his characters. And it wasn't that Yoda was this untrustworthy, hiding secrets, and it was all his fault for the revenge, for not telling the High Council that Sith still existed prior to, like, 200 years or so, or near that, prior to the Phantom Menace, I guess you can say, events of the Phantom Menace. And it's all his fucking fault. It's all his fucking fault. And I've talked about this. I've seen this fucking coming even before the Acolyte. I've seen this coming. And I've talked about it. And Yoda's supposed to be this wise, this wizened character to save the Jedi Order, go into hiding to save the Jedi Order, right? Just like Obi-Wan is, you know, similar. Going into hiding to protect the Hope, I guess you can say. And to train and all this other. And now you're gonna, not you guys, but now Yoda's going to be seen as this untrustworthy, hypocritical character. Not this wizened, not this wise character. Yeah, he made mistakes. all characters, like under George Lucas's era of Star Wars, characters did make mistakes, even the wise ones, right? Even the ones that were seen, I wouldn't say put up on a pedestal, but basically just seen in leadership, I guess you can say. So that right there, and I was going to pull up, I was trying to pull up every single little post that was made about her, and I was going to share that, make a collage and share that and talk about that. But I just wanted to talk about the very important one, and that is Yoda. Mooney and his age, yeah, that has something that has been established, and both Headland and Pablo Hidalgo are fucking full of shit. That's all I'm going to say about that. They are fucking full of shit. We discuss this over and over again. We have the Acolyte, Disney, Shield defenders going after to try to save face for these decisions and stuff. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck are they paying you here? Like, come on now. Got to protect the corporation. Right? Oh, but the EU is not canon, and that's canon. That's in EU material. No, it's not fucking in that. It is actually in the movie material. The movie material. Oh, well, they decanonized that too. Well, then did they fucking decanonize the movie then? You're right. Hidalgo does not care for anything. He's just saying for a paycheck now. Yeah. Staying. Yeah. So if you're on Twitter, you may have seen the series of these things about these statements from Leslie Headland. And I swear to fucking God, holy shit, she is a dumb motherfucker. That's all I got to say about that. She is idiotic, and it's all about what she wants to tell. She even based her story on her relationship with her and her sister, the Acolyte, or said it was about, or whatever. Like, I don't know. You don't get it, OG. You're just a brain lollipop. Lollipop, lollipop. Oh, lollipop. Yeah. Fucking crazy, right? And with this, I'll share another idiot here. Let me go ahead and pull. Do I have it up? And then we'll get into the main one for Cringe Factor. Let me see. I don't have it here, so I have to pull this up. Okay. You know what? I don't want this one here. No. Okay, I know where to find it. All right. Do. I wish there was like I should start doing background music. Let's see here. All right. Hopefully this works the way I want it to. Share screen. Now we're on Rumble, which is exciting, like premiering here on Rumble only. And this will probably premiere on YouTube later this weekend. So stay tuned for that. And when I do premiere it, I might not be in the chat to monitor. So if it premieres, and I'll give my mods that if you guys want to take turns going in and monitoring the chat. If not, then it's just going to be what it's going to be. All right, let's see here. Let me share this. All right. So basically, screen time, which I think I've used them at least a couple of times for Cringe Factor. Basically, this is what they're saying about Tamora Morrison. He says Disney put Boba Fett on the shelf after he asked Star Wars fans to campaign for his return. And this is via Inverse, and I read the article, but we got Mr. Joshy Boy, the guy that pivots back and forth on don't support Disney Star Wars and then back to supporting Disney Star Wars and just can't decide which side of the fence he wants to sit on. It's his grift. It's just his fucking grift, right? So this is what he has to say. And I read the article and I'll share with you guys what I stated here. They literally got mad at him, Tamora, basically, for asking for more and decided not to make more because of that. Do you guys understand how fucked up Lucasfilm has to be for this to have happened? So he's saying because Tamora basically asked, they said no and shelved Boba Fett. Now, was this from his sources? You know, because this is one of the guys that says, oh, I have sources. And they end up like not being true, basically. But anyways, so he's saying this. And so this article, because neither here, Screen Time is sharing exactly what was done or said in this article, why this happened, and neither does Joshy Boy. Neither does Joshy Boy. So this is me. Did you read the article? Disney Lucasfilm set him straight for joking at a convention to rally fans to contact Lucasfilm, well, basically Disney Lucasfilm, about Boba Fett. Morrison knew Boba was shelved already. That is why he did his quote-unquote joke. Not that they, Disney Lucasfilm, decided to shelve the character after that. So he is making something out of nothing, probably to get clicks. He'll probably do a video for it saying, oh, look at this. This is what they did to Tamora Morrison. It's not his fucking decision. It's not up to Morrison if the character is going to be utilized or not. And why do you want to fucking bring him back anyways when they bastardize Boba Fett so much? And so Joshy Boy too. So now you're on the hate train again for Disney Lucasfilm. You can't really stay consistent. And you know what? This is now Filoni's thing now, right? Because he is the president and then Lin-Wen is the co-president. But I thought you favored Filoni. So what is it? And do you still want the bastardized, cucky version of Boba Fett? When you look at him in the Book of Boba Fett, they turned him into this gay-ass character that basically just sits around and the woman tells him what to do. Oh my God, I saw misogynistic, right? Holy shit. Let me take a sip of my coffee. But seriously, I mean, they with him handling the Tuskens and then also handling like everything, like he was like turning him into this crime lord, whatever. I don't know. It's fucking weird. But then again, he doesn't have the power of that. It's like they basically took his manhood away. If you seen Boba Fett under George Lucas era and how he handled, you know, things and how he was a loner, how he had a lot of things going on in his life from losing his wife and having a daughter and granddaughter, how he handled his business, right? There's a lot of factors that went into that. But Joshy Boy here, campaigning for Tamora Morrison so he can get some more Book of Boba Fett. That cook-ass character. That fake-ass Boba Fett. That fake-ass Boba Fett. Now, the article, like I said, I read it. And basically, Tamora Morrison was at a convention. And I forgot the name of it, and I didn't write it down. But anyways, he was at a convention, and he was rallying, talking with fans, and rallying with fans to email, to write Lucasfilm to continue Boba Fett. And once that started happening, Lucasfilm basically got a hold of him. They're like, hey, bro, knock your shit off because we're not going to use them. We can use them sometime in the future. But, you know, so basically they told him where to stick it. And they didn't say, oh, because you're doing this and we fucking hate you, we're going to go ahead and shelve Boba Fett. There was nothing like that. Now, I'm not defending Disney Lucasfilm whatsoever here, but I just think this is fucking full of shit. That all of this is just, they're all full of shit. Joshy, full of shit. The damn mopeds. Oh my God. Yeah. Trying to bring up a conspiracy as if like Tamara Morrison has any say in when the character can be used, when or what have you, or he has a say if the character is shelved or not. Now, did I like him as in George Lucas era, in episode 2 and stuff? Yeah, it was pretty cool. For what it was, yeah, like a small history, expanded history on the Fets. Soul Assassin says, I feel bad for Tamara Morrison. Looking at the footage from the games and films, you can see he had a good time making them and meeting fans. Yeah. So he's trying, and you got that point there, and I'll address it a little bit more here. He wants to rekindle what he experienced under George Lucas, under pre-Disney Lucasfilm. That's what I'm getting here. He wants a job. And we talked about this before. We even talked about it on the space, and he wants a job. He doesn't care if the character has been cucked out or not. Neither does Joshy. In fact, Joshy seems like a big fan of it because he wants him back. So there you go. What do you guys think? Anybody else want to share their opinion? Go ahead. I mean, it's a great conversation to get into on this. All right. And let's see here. Let's see here. I have the article in front of me. Let me go ahead and scroll. I have it right here. And then we'll get into the final cringe factor, and then we'll call it a day. A morning. And then I just got to get myself prepped and ready to teach tonight. Let's see here. Let's click out of here. Stop screen. There we go. So I'll share just a quick thing here, just to give more context to what's going on. So basically, Lucasfilm told Tamara Morrison Boba Fett is on the shelf. So back in 2025, Tamara Morrison tried to rally Star Wars fans at the Tampa Bay Comic-Con into asking for Boba Fett to return in live action, asking them to send a fax or a letter or an email to those powers that be. But the comments landed him in hot water with Disney and Lucasfilm. So Disney Lucasfilm. So this is what he says. I was only joking. I am at a convention and I say stupid things, Morrison told Inverse. Then I've got Disney Lucasfilm ringing me. Look, you've been put on the shelf, Boba Fett. We might open up the jar later. So that doesn't mean that because of his actions, he was put on the shelf. Boba Fett was put on the shelf because of his actions. They're just not making any more shit live action with Boba Fett. It's apparent. Hell, they don't even know what they're doing with their Mando versus Grogu and Ahsoka, let alone another story live action about Boba Fett. So there you go. Someone's just looking for a little bit more drama on their end, Mr. Joshy boy. All right, let's see here. Remove. Remove. Let me take a sip here. Now, last of our cringe factor. Let me go ahead and find it, and I'll play a clip for that. Let me close some of these windows. I hate to have too many up. Let's see here. I hear my granddaughter playing back in the room right now. Let's see here. Chat. Oh, yeah. I have a place where I store links sometimes for myself. Where is it? Did I not? Damn it, I did not. I thought I put it here. Okay. Here I'm all like, oh, guess what I do? I store my links, and I thought I had that one in there. Okay, let me scroll up. I think I know where it's at. Let's see here. There's always one thing I'm always forgetting about. Let me see here. Damn. There we go. Let me see here. Okay. Now, speaking of Yoda, no, I don't think that was the right one. It's a Yoda story still. Let's see here. Yeah, we'll do this one. We'll do this one here. Let's see here. Smash the like. Soul Assassin says a Fett-focused movie would make bank. Imagine that Dread movie from a few years back with Fett. But not under Disney. Look what they already did to him. Look what they already did to him. All right, so let's see here. Share screen. All right, so going back to the Yoda thing. And this is by Screen Rant. And of course, let me go ahead and play this because why not?
So uncivilized.
So uncivilized. Yes, exactly. All right. So we talked about Yoda. We talked about what's going on and how it's not only Yoda that Disney Lucasfilm is reshaping how people view George's Star Wars, right? They have to get rid of our toxic EU to make it happen, right? It was a soft reboot. It is very clear that J.J. Abrams came in with a soft reboot and gave something comfortable for fans, these Star Wars fans to watch that felt familiar, right? And then from there, it all started going downhill. And then you've seen how they started taking, not taking care of, but how they've been treating Luke, Leia, Han, and how it started trickling down. So here we go. We have this here, Screen Rant. Thank you once again for contributing to Cringe Factor. 9 years later, Star Wars' most important Yoda line is rewriting the franchise for the best. What the fuck? For the best. All right, so we'll get into it. And this is Ambrose Tardive. I don't think I've used this or I've seen this guy or read any of his articles for Cringe Factor yet. I'm almost sure. So he's on the comics team for Screen Rant. Over the past 2 years has developed into the internet's foremost authority on the far side. Whatever. All right, so there we go. Yoda is a quote machine by Star Wars standards. With his idiocentric syntax, the little green Jedi Master has uttered multiple candidates for the franchise's best lines. Yet there's one that hits especially closer to home because it encapsulates how Star Wars creators turn his current struggle into future success. The best teacher, fill your ears. Oh, we're going down that line again. And this was basically published March 2026. It's been over 10 years since the Disney era of Star Wars began. And yes, been so sad to see the fall of Star Wars in general. And it feels like the past decade's highs for the franchise were mostly front-loaded. Oh my God. Since the release of the Rise of Skywalker. Oh, my stupid cat. So this is Disney's Rise of Skywalker, because you know that doesn't exist in George Lucas' era. Has been in an increasingly rough spot on screen, and also the franchise is extended universe. No, it's not expanded, it's extended. It's extended out. It's extended out. All right, let's see here. So Star Wars creator needs to take note of Yoda's greatest sequel trilogy quotes. So they're talking about the sequel trilogy quotes. There we go. So Star Wars has its success in Star Wars has success in the 2020s. Shit. And they're noting Andor with Tony Gilroy, who can give a shit about George Lucas and Star Wars and the lore. And of course, Rogue One, which basically, if it wasn't for the the hallway scene with Vader, no one would have gave a shit about that. Let's see here. It says, unfortunately, Andor is the exception that proves the rule. No, it does not prove the rule. Rule that it proves the rule on like the standards that George made. Bull fucking shit. Bull fucking shit. All right, so we're gonna just skip all of that bloatedness right here. That's where Yoda's icon Last Jedi line comes in. The best teacher, fill your ears. There's only so much Lucasfilm Star Wars, Disney Lucasfilm Star Wars production company can do to replicate its Disney era hits so far. Oh, you mean like nostalgia and just repeating, extending on? Get it? But it's Mrs. can provide a true roadmap for what to avoid. So basically, they want to expand on this, extend on this, or basically rewrite. And it's not the franchise, not rewriting the franchise's best line from Yoda. No, it is rewriting Disney Star Wars best line from Yoda. You see how they make it sound like it's one thing, but it's really the other. So far, if failure is a good lesson for Disney, should be all good now. Nope. Gross. Oh my goodness. So there you go, you guys. There you go. Let's see. Every aspect of the Star Wars you finally got it right. The expanded universe has arguably followed a similar arc in the Disney era. What? Every aspect of the expanded universe, George Lucas' expanded universe, has arguably followed a simpler arc in Disney era. Or are they talking about theirs? I think they're talking about theirs. But anyways, starting off strong and then trending downward into great creative rut. This is evident in the sequel trilogy. It's even more apparent in the trajectory of Star Wars spin-offs over the past decade. If they're in the comics, novels, and video games as well. Look at the success of Rogue One. So this is all about Rogue One and Andor or something like that on loan. And the failure of Solo in 2018. And then when Disney Star Wars Starfighter hits theaters in 2027, it'll be just the third standalone spin-off movie in 11 years. So The Mandalorian Grogu's 2026 theatrical release will tie up a storyline that started on TV following 2 highly regarded seasons and a third that left many fans underwhelmed. So basically, they're teaching themselves their own lesson with failures. And he is saying, audience wants new Star Wars for a new era. No, we just want this bullshit to end. So what do you guys think about this? What do you think about this nonsense here? It's very interesting to see and read that the screenwriter that highly shields for Disney, Lucasfilm, Disney Star Wars, is now saying that they need to sit back and learn from the line that Yoda says in The Last Jedi about failure. Learning from failure. When in fact, the Yoda that's presented in The Last Jedi is just still the continuing bastardization that Disney, Lucasfilm has done upon the character. We just talked about it. And then this Force Ghost of Yoda then Force lightning shoots Force lightning down from the sky to burn the tree. That tree or whatever the friggin' thing is that's supposed to be about Force, the Force tree or whatever. Telling Luke, or Jake Skywalker, he needs to learn from his failure. But has this Yoda from Disney Star Wars learn from his failure, right? They're trying to establish his character as being an hypocrite that lies, withholds secrets, and then because of that, the galaxy falls to the dark side. And it goes into hiding. Yet, this guy who's telling this Jake Skywalker to learn from his failures has never learned from his failures. Has never guided this Jake Skywalker to say, don't be a fucking hypocrite. Right? But he's not, like, the real Yoda is not in exile because of failures, or because he's hiding from the failures. He's in exile because he's protecting the order so that it can continue on. He's preparing for the bigger fight, right? So there's a difference between this Yoda in Disney, and I've never found a clever name for Disney's Yoda versus, it's like we have Jake because of Mark Hamill's response about it not being the real Luke. It's Jake or something. But then you have this character here that they put a mask on that they call their Yoda, right? And he's like, oh, learn from your failures, even though I haven't. Do as I say, not as I do, or something like, I don't know. Or do as I do and not as I say. I don't know. It's so fucking weird. Because then you got to believe, oh, well, okay, so then, hey, Star Wars Grand. Oh, yeah, well, this Jake listened to him. He learned from his failures, and so he decided to force project himself from that planet over there to basically antagonize this boy that's supposed to be his nephew in the Disney Star Wars lore. Right? And it wasn't really necessary either. Because Rey basically did everything herself. Did he buy her time? No fucking no, he didn't buy her time, because where she was at and she completely took control of everything, even when she passed over where they were stationed up at, right? And, you know, did like a 3-in-1 kill shot because, you know, she's that good of a character. She's that Mary Sue. And then lands on the opposite side or wherever she landed and realized, and then these little crystal foxes ran through the base and basically led these the so-called resistance to where Rey is, and she just used the force and removed the blocks, and they were off. They were gone. So you could take that whole scene out with Luke, and that's it. You wouldn't really need it. But anyways, that's just about the writing and stuff like that. So Yoda, the biggest hypocrite for Disney Star Wars, the bastardization, the continued bastardization of a beloved character, George Lucas' character, right? George Lucas' character. How are you doing, Scran? Dropping in to say, hey, don't forget to leave a like. Yes, don't forget to leave a like. So there you go. There you go. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to pull up something that Soul Assassin sent me. Go, 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 go. They don't want you up here. There goes a book. Oh, this is from 2013. George Lucas and comic book and early link. Let's go ahead and take a look at that, because I'm surprised that this is still up on Star Wars. I'm surprised this is still up on Star Wars. Because there's some articles that I want to pull up that are regarding the EU and stuff like that were taken down. Go figure, right? Go figure. So this is by Rinsler, 2013. So this is like in the early days of the buyout. So just shortly after everything was finalized. So I am writing another blog. What I have been up to? Well, I have had a series of long conversations with Edward Summer, which are being published in an interview from the next 3 issues of Star Wars Insider. So, okay, so there we go. It's around 2013. I want to find that. No, most fans have never heard of Summer, though he's in at least one photo in the book Cinema of George Lucas, which I have right here next to me. I first met Summer at the Barney Greengrass Deli on the Upper West Side of New York City while doing research for the book. As a result, he allowed us to publish him from his collection of photos of George Lucas and Frank Frazetta outside of the latter's home, probably the only photo of them together with Summer in it too. So look at this right here. I'm scrolling down. I have to take a look. Images courtesy of the Edward Summers collection, copyright Edward Summers, all rights reserved. So here is the comic book here, the store. Oh my God. So how many of you guys had that special comic book store you guys visited growing up? Let me know in the comments. Many years later, a thought came to me one early morning that Summer was really the only link to an important part of the early development of Star Wars. Summer was Lucas's links to the world of comic books. Bit of interesting history here, you guys, if you didn't know this. It was Summer who enabled Lucas to study the original artwork of Alex Raymond. Together, they discussed the merits of comic book artists such as Frazetta, Al Williamson's, Howard Chaykin, Carl Barks, and others. Summer interviewed Lucas for a documentary, The Men Who Made the Comics. He was doing it on a National Endowment for the Arts grant circa 1974 through 1976. Summer now is trying to find that interview. If he finds it, and he says he will publish it in the Insider. So I'm going to go check that out. Moreover, Lucas became co-owner of Summer's pioneering gallery in New York City, Super Snipe Comic Arts Gallery. So there you go. So I know that Lucas had a comic store or what have you, but I didn't realize it was the art gallery type. Named after a comic book character, the kid who had the most comic books in America, Kopi McFadden, who appeared in the very popular series in the 1940s. Summer licensed the name from Condé Nast for many years. So there you go, a little history here. So he was co-owner of this, very big into comics, just like I stated. And that's true because even like Sue Rustoni and even Dave Filoni confirmed this. Yes, I'm using him as a source because, you know, I'm not a hateful bitch. I just don't care for him, right? But Filoni also stated that George read the comics as well. In Star Wars, when people say anti-EU, people say, oh, George never read anything in the EU, blah, blah, blah. No, he read the comics. He did read a couple of books, but the man's busy, right? He's not, and reading something does not set precedence on if it's valid, authentic, or part of the canon or not, right? So, quote unquote, this says, the Super Snipe comic book Euphorium pre-existed by meeting George by several years, about 1970. Summer says it was the second incarnation of the store at 1617 2nd Avenue that George and Gary Kurtz used to visit. A little bit more history here, you guys. If you don't know George's history on comics, you're getting it now. And his love of them. The first was in East 83rd Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue. The idea of an art gallery evolved in conversation, and it was incorporated about 1974 as a business that both George and I owned together. After it was dissolved, I retained the name and operated it as an adjunct of the original Super Snipe. The subtitle of the Super Snipe, say Supreme again, comic book Euphorium, which was totally owned by me, not in partnership with George Lucas. Quote unquote, the store with the most comic books in America. That was actually true for many years. So there you go. Comics, a great American tradition. Super Snipe. Summer was also simply one of Lucas's friends who was an avid supporter of making George's crazy space fantasy film. One of the few who got what George was trying to do, who understood where Lucas was coming from. Indeed, the other day I got an email from Summer saying that he had woken up on remembering a single comic book panel that George had said was a key inspiration for Star Wars. See upcoming issue 141 of Insider. So, Scran, if you're listening, look that up, which comes out in a couple of months. Summer was also friends with the young Turks of the New York City film world, such as Martin Scorsese and Brian De Palma. Went to parties at Carrie Fisher's apartment. Oh, that must have been fun. Imagine going to Carrie Fisher's house or place for a party. Holy heck. And I'm just going to go ahead and play this right here.
George Lucas ruined my life. 57 years ago, I did his little Star Wars film. The fact that you made me into a little doll that my first husband could stick pins into, a shampoo bottle where people could twist my head off and pour liquid out of my neck, lather up with Leia and you'll feel like a princess yourself. And yes, the little Pez dispensers. And though amongst your many possessions you have owned my likeness, lo, all these years, so that every time I look in the mirror, I have to send you a check for a couple of bucks. You had the unmitigated gall to let that chick, the new girl who plays my mother, Queen Amadillo, or whatever her name is, she wears a new hairstyle and outfit practically every time she walks through a door. I mean, I bet she even got to wear a bra, even though you told me I couldn't because there was no underwear in space. I hope I slept with you to get the job, because if not, who the hell was that guy?
Rest in peace, Carrie Fisher. Now to continue. Knew all the comics books of his era and before. So this is George. And even produced films such as the original. Oh, no, that's not George. And even produced films such as the original Conan the Barbarian, all of which made him an amico sympathetic. I'm like tongue twisting on here. Simpatico for George. So basically, yeah. So that this is like George's inspiration and stuff like that. You can read more about the details in upcoming installments of Insider. So there you go. Thank you for sharing this, Soul. Thank you so much. I knew George was a significant fan, big fan of comics, and he loved the art as well. And so this just feeds right into more of that. And I think one of the greatest comics that he I'm gonna say it's his top favorite, but basically one of them that he gifted to his employees was the Dark Empire. Yeah. Yeah. Lucas kids read the books as well. They sure did. They sure did. There we go. Let me see here. And and when you see things like his ideas that he written for for Disney for the sequel trilogy, the 7, 8, 9 treatments, basically. You could tell he read the comics because, one of his favorite characters was being considered as a villain, as an apprentice towards Maul, right? And that then turned into an idea for a game, which flourished more as a game than that idea as well. And George Lucas even was like, consider or even agreed to keep continuity according to the characters. And so that development was being done, and then it got halted during development because of the buyouts and other things going on with LucasArts. So that's its little history there. I did a video on that, and if it didn't make it here on Rumble, I think I will premiere that video here next, so that it can coincide with this this conversation about Lucas comics and all this other stuff, and go into the game part of Lucas's brilliance, because Lucas, we knew, wanted to give fans a way to interact with the Star Wars universe, basically the franchise, and that was through gameplay. Pretty much so that, you can later on, as that development happened with LucasArts and games development happened, you can opt to play light or dark side versions of characters and all of that. Giving you your own experience doesn't mean that happened in the actual canon story, but giving you your own experience within the Star Wars lore, right? And then he was really big on, parodies, and he even held fan film competitions as well. So George Lucas right there was all about giving people room to have fun with his creation and supporting him in that way. And he made it very clear, for those who are doing the parodies and doing the film competition and stuff like that, that there's perimeters set for that, just like how there is for the EU to keep continuity with the movies and stuff in his vision. But for those things, it was all about the perimeters were all about knowing that these stories weren't going to be canon at all. And there are specific things that they could and couldn't do either. And so that was very smart of George, because some people, they have their head canon and they want to believe it this way, and then they think because George picked it, then it's actual canon, because you do have idiots out there like that. All right, let's see here. Is there anything else I want to share? We can start closing out. I want to close out at the hour, at the full 2 hours. Let's see here. All right. Now with Mandalorian Grogu, that has something that has been shared with it barely closing its filming development and stuff like that just recently. And how long has this been out that this was going to be a show, a movie or whatever? And there's just been this back and forth of the season 3 wasn't received well by fans and stuff, and it was so bad that they decided to take the season 4 or whatever, or the continuation of the story into movie and put it in theaters, taking the risk of trying to get this in theaters to see if they can get people in the seats. Now, I think that's kind of a bad choice. In a sense, theaters are not as they used to be anymore since COVID, since the closures. And they're not even anything like they were used to be when I was growing up. And even when my kids were younger, it used to be the hangout place. It used to be me and my friends are going, or me and my dates going. Um, Now it's like, and then you used to hear people talk all the time about seeing a show and being hyped and, having these discussions and stuff like that. And maybe going back to see it again because you're taking a friend that never seen it and you want to experience it with them. And now it's not that like that anymore. The theater scene is not how it used to be. And theaters are even suffering for it. So, Mandalorian Grogu coming out. Do you think it's going to be a failure or not? Or is it going to be a failure with Disney Star Wars? Think about that. And those in the chat, let me know. I mean, I'm following it just to follow its development. See what's going on with it. The kick it spot, correct. That was the kick it. And then you had, fun things like smuggling food and drinks in, right? And then you had matinees where they cost like $1 to get in and all that. And there was so much hype for the theater experience. And I also blame having online access to now different you call it streaming hubs like Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus. Because why should you're already paying money if you chose to subscribe to them, to their streams, their streaming platforms. You're already paying for them. And you're probably paying for multiple because everyone is completely different. So you're not getting the same content, really, unless like Disney licensed one of their shows out to another. You hear that, Jet? But anyways, so you're paying for not only one, but more. That's usually the average, right? So why would you leave the house when you have your social media in front of you and you have your streaming platforms in front of you and all of that, right? I mean, you should get out and touch grass, right? You should get out and touch grass. But people are making such big issues, big value on movies nowadays as if they're a success or failure based upon, the opening day and 2 weeks and stuff, when in reality, theaters are not like they used to be. So what is the deciding factor now? We just can't compare them to the past anymore because, again, theaters are not the thing. They're not the thing at all. So does it matter how much of a hit a show is or isn't now? Because in the prime of theater experience, that's when you noticed, that's when you've seen the hype. That's when you've seen what audiences really, really wanted, right? And now, like I said, like the theater that we have here on the reservation, because we have our entertainment center and all this other stuff, we're only open for a few days a week. It's still sustainable in a sense, I guess, because the entertainment center is open too as well, and that's a moneymaker too, where you go in and we have a bowling alley here. We have like an arcade type style atmosphere here, all of that. And but how can we gauge what is worthy now based upon the theater system now? Can we? And that's just something to think about, right? That's just something to think about right now compared to how it used to be. How it used to be back in the days, like, especially even when the PT came out. Remember those days? Like for a couple of weeks, no matter which one it was, people were lined up outside as much to what people may argue about with the PT. People were lined out outside. They were enjoying themselves. They were in cosplay. A lot, like for a long time, like for all three of the PT, like the theaters around where I lived at, they were sold out. They were sold out. So with Mandalorian Grogu, I'm going to watch and see what's going to happen with the grifting part of like people saying, looking at online ticket purchases at theaters where you could pick your seat, and them saying, look it, no one bought any tickets here. It's a failure. Is that really a deciding factor anymore? You know? And because you screenshot one moment of a theater during ticket sales and stuff doesn't mean that that's going to be an accurate account either. When you do research and you're using a source like that, that always changes minute by minute based upon tickets, you need to actively do a timed screenshot or research a time recording to show like ticket sales and how much were sold over time, or how many seats and stuff. But is it still a deciding factor? Because usually when a movie is going to premiere, or not premiere, but show at their prospective time, then you have people who don't go online purchasing tickets at the actual theater. So my point is, theaters are not a deciding factor. They're not popular anymore, right? They're not as they used to be. And when you buy tickets online, that's not a deciding factor on like if the movie's going to be successful or not, based upon if you see a lot of empty seats. You have to continue to do, if you're going to do that fucking research, you have to do it for some time across the board. Not just a one-time screenshot saying, oh, look at all these empty seats. It's going to be a failure kind of deal, right? You got to do the research. You got to put the time in to do the research over the time frame of when that movie premieres and stuff. But is that a deciding factor too? No, it's not. So I'm excited to see what grift is going to be said regarding Mandalorian Grogu with those on our side. And I can guarantee you that there are going to be screenshots of going online to purchase tickets and picking your seat out, and that being used as evidence, like it's not a success. Now, am I defending the movie? No, I'm not. I'm just sharing what the grift is about, what the narrative is about. We will find out later if it is or not. But again, we have to take a bigger look at the theater system today. Compare it to it in the past. It's not as popular. So as I close out here, we're coming close to, was it supposed to be May 27th that Mandalorian Grogu is supposed to come out? What exactly is it? What exactly are the dates? What exactly are the dates? But it's supposed to be coming out soon. I'll say that. It's supposed to be coming out soon. So I'll be watching. I'll be asking people what they think about it. If I know people who like it personally in real life who have seen it, get their honest opinion, and especially give their opinion on the population within the theater when they went and watched, how packed it was, how full it was. That'll be something interesting to see and talk about. And maybe I'll ask them questions about the movie in general, lore-wise. You know, kind of getting my heels in the dirt, right? For that. Getting my heels in the dirt for that. To try to do a little bit more fair assessment instead of just screenshotting a theater seat plan to purchase tickets to make claims. All right, you guys. So with that being said, stay tuned for that. I also have some videos coming out. I am putting together a timeline of George Lucas and his statements about there not being a 7, 8, and 9, and how that was carried into 2020 with the interview of Kathleen Kennedy, and what changed and what was really going on with this, and why he decided to write some ideas for 7, 8, and 9 for Disney Star Wars, or Disney in general. So stay tuned for that. I'm almost done with that. It's been very interesting ride to go through on that. And if you're catching the replay, thank you so much for hanging out. Now, next week will be both on Rumble and YouTube. This will premiere on YouTube probably Sunday night or Sunday, so stay tuned for that. I'll give you guys a time frame that will premiere over there. And those who are on YouTube, if you're listening at the time that this premieres over there, come over here to Rumble, follow, and subscribe. I'm now on the Creators Program. Time to grow this, right? Time to grow. All right. And again, as always, share this out. Leave your opinion, your comment below. Let's have a conversation. And thank you for watching. Thank you for those who hung out. It looks like 41 all in all together. Thank you guys so much. Rumble is fairly new for CAF Chat, especially Thursday morning. So thank you guys for hanging out and supporting it as well. So again, may the force be with you, and I will chat with you guys later. And until we talk again, let me know on Twitter, if you follow me or whatever, what book you're reading. And we'll get back into the New Jedi Order again. I just had to talk about some other things going on. And so we'll get back into the New Jedi Order next week. And with that being said, let's listen to this.
I had fought the worst of all wars and witnessed the redemption of evil. I have seen balance restored to the Force. But order can turn to chaos, as it did when I was born. Now, with my loved ones and my loyal allies, I face a new challenge unlike any before. And I'm not sure at this time we can win.
Star Wars Vector Prime by R.A. Salvatore, the first novel of the New Jedi Order.
Another happy landing.